one of the reasons that I don't give a great big deal about rations, now we have our rations in the poultry book, they're there, but one of the reasons I downplay it in a seminar like this is because I want you to use what's available locally. And so if oats and barley and rye and milo and sugar beets are what's being grown here, that's what I want you to use. And rations, that's where Morrison's Feed and Feeding book can come in. You can formulate any kind of ration. Usually the layers want about a 16% protein, and he'll give you there just charts and charts of all sorts of feedstuffs from, goodness, coffee grounds to pumice, apple pumice. Because the thing is, people do live next to stuff, okay? I mean, Vermont Composting in Montpelier, Vermont has a 6-acre composting facility. They run, I think it's 1,000 to 2,000 layers and buy no feed whatsoever. And the chickens just eat the worms and the bugs in the compost heaps. And they're just covered with chickens all the time. The chickens are just out there, scratching. As Michael Pollan says, they're doing backwards break dancing, a chicken can't see her feet. Did you ever notice that? A chicken can't look at her feet. She looks up here and she scratches, and then she backs up and she looks, Then she comes up here and she scratches, she backs up and she looks, And that's, they call it backwards break dancing. But, if you live next to an orchard, maybe, and one of our problems is, we don't live next to any of these things, and we just die for people that live next to. For example, we supply a couple of vineyards with product. They have on-farm restaurants, at these hoity-toity vineyards, and they have all this great pumice. My goodness, when they make wine, you talk about a wonderful feed source. It's sweet, it's rich, all those nuts in it, the great nuts in there, the seeds. And you could literally feed pigs and chickens on a 90% diet of apple or grape or any kind of fruit pumice, and okay, so for a couple of months, but that's a couple of months of free feed, and it keeps that business from having a waste problem. Pumpkins, Halloween pumpkins. What do all the supermarkets do with all their Halloween pumpkins? If you can go around and collect all that stuff. We have tried for a long time to bring, when we supply all these restaurants, we've tried to bring back their garbage, their waste, back to the farm. And we worked with finally one for a good while where we were bringing back all of their produce scraps, lettuce leaves and stuff. And the chickens would eat, 1,000 chickens will eat 100 pounds of lettuce leaves a day, a barrel full, okay? It's a wonderful supplement. The problem was when the temperature got warm, we're only going once a week, and the restaurant started having problems with the health inspector. What's all this, rotting leaves and flies around your back door? And then, of course, we put that in our delivery truck, and now you got rotting, produce bins in with your eggs and your frozen meat, and fresh, primal pork bellies, and it just doesn't jive. And so that's why people like Pat, that's my niece there, but Pat Foreman, City Chicks, and I agree that ultimately, in our paradise world, there would not be an egg industry. And I'm the first to admit, I wish we didn't produce the eggs we produced. Ideally, eggs would be produced next to waste streams. That's the way historically they've always been. There have always been chickens next to kitchens. If all the restaurants we serviced had 50 hens outside their back door instead of the trash bin, okay, then not only would they not have to buy eggs and we wouldn't have to deliver them and spend the energy to deliver them, but they would be able to take their edible garbage right out to the chickens would eat it, they bring the eggs in, and the cycle is complete, and there's no diesel fuel anywhere. And Pat has figured this out. She's got the math, it's just wonderful. If like a tenth of the people raised like 10 layers, it would provide all of the eggs that we need. I mean, it's just phenomenally how easy eggs would be to eliminate the entire egg industry. Boy, wouldn't that send the egg board into a tizzy? If we actually took control of our own food system and said, play your games, folks, we're going to have an independent system. Boy, wouldn't that run them into a tizzy? So fundamentally, I'm a believer in integrated systems. Do you live next to a seed cleaning operation? Pioneer Seeds or somebody. All right, they've got all this chaff and seed cleaning that's a waste product. They'll give it to you for free. Go get it. Dump it in there, and you can feed it. You can waste that if you need to. It's cheap, it's free, and you can compost the residue. So I'm a big believer in integrating into these systems. That's probably enough for alternative feed sources. And to realize that this year, as I mentioned yesterday, we're going to be doing the sprouting test, the charcoal test. 1 year in the hoop house, we put in an earthworm bed and with wire cloches on top so the chickens wouldn't get onto it, and rye, put rye on, and under the rabbits. So you got rabbits going down, the rabbit manure going down, and sprouting rye in there, and then these 4-foot segmented cloches, we could just pull a 4-foot segment off every day, and the chickens would go in and eat fresh, rye that had sprouted up. Or this cloche was a wire, a 1x2 wire cloche, right? And so the chickens would roost on there, and their manure would add to it as well, and you're growing this rye. One of them, I met an interesting guy up in British Columbia, and he had a stationary house. Well, you know how when you have a stationary house, you always have this high impact zone where the chickens are walking out every day, and you've got this dirt. Well, what he did, this was pretty cool. I mean, I'm not a big fan of stationary houses, but this was pretty cool. He went out there and took just 2x4 boards and made a large apron deck out there, covered it up with just wire mesh, okay, and out there 25 feet, okay, out in this high impact zone where, of course, the roof water came down. The chickens would stand there on this deck. Well, because of the extra water from the roof drip line and the nutrients from the chickens standing there and pooping, because it was up off the ground yay far, the grass grew. It was not dirt, okay? It was like this unbelievably golf course thick carpet of grass growing, and then the chickens just kept it mowed perfectly to the top of that wire mesh deck. And it was gorgeous. It was just gorgeous. And so there's always room for new ideas. Everybody follow the picture there? It was really, really cool for a high impact zone. So so the beauty of the 4-inch thing was it kept the chickens from being on the ground to impact, which brings me to the next thing I want to really hit here, and that is this whole impact zone. The reason that we're moving these birds is to keep the impact zone down. Chickens are hard on pasture. You leave them in a place very long, they're going to turn into a dust bin. And nature sanitizes 2 ways, either with rest and sunshine, which is the portable pasture idea, or vibrant decomposition, which is the composting idea. And so I want to just say something here to all of my urban friends and the people that are trying to do this in an urban setting and maybe don't have a yard at all, okay? Don't get hung up on this pastured eggmobile thing. If I had a patio only or a postage stamp situation, or goodness, I had the chickens in the house, a condominium, I don't even have any land whatsoever, what I promote is the deep bedding concept. Here's the thing. If I said, we're going to build a compost pile today, but we don't have very much material, so we're only going to build this compost pile 12 inches by 12 inches by 12 inches. What would you say to me? Come on, this is okay. It's too small. Yeah, that's the right answer. Too small. Why is it too small? Okay. There's not enough mass to maintain a core community of beings. All right? The beings that are doing the decomposition can't live right out on the edges. There's got to be a certain mass there. To give you a kind of morbid picture of this, just imagine that you walked out here today and it was, let's say, centigrade. All right, let's say that it's 5 degrees centigrade outside. And there's a rain falling. And somebody stole all your clothes. All right, so you're out there in 5 degrees centigrade, cold, rain, no clothes. What's going to happen pretty soon? You're going to get cold. You're going to get hypothermia. What happens when you get hypothermia? What does your body do? Yeah, you start, your fingers go blue, your toes go blue, because your body is protecting a core of this internal core, all right? Well, a compost pile is a little bit the same way. And it focuses its energy in this internal core mass of community, and it takes a certain amount in order to be viable. And so that's the way the compost pile works. So when we have animals in a housing situation, what keeps them clean and healthy is a vibrantly decomposing compost bedding pack, what I call a carbonaceous diaper. All right? And that thing has got